Let's just go ahead and say what a lot of people are feeling right now. This isn't just interesting news. People are uneasy. Some are anxious. Some are losing sleep because the headlines don't feel distant anymore. You hear things like rising oil prices, conflict escalation, global tension increasing. And it's not just information. It hits your life. It hits your wallet. It hits your sense of security. It hits how you think about your family, your future, and your kids. And then on top of that, you've got leaders saying things that are just confusing and frustrating, sometimes even a little alarming. And if you're like most people, you're just simply trying to figure it out. What's actually going on? And what am I supposed to do with it? And let's be really clear about something up front. We're not here today to break down every headline or pretend that we're experts in global politics, but we are here to try and make sense of what people are feeling, to bring a little clarity where we can, and to talk about how we respond in ways that are wise, grounded, and actually helpful. Because you don't need to know everything to live wisely in something. So let's talk about what's going on. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm Tony Marr, and with me as always is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everybody, we are so glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and have real conversations about life, faith, growth, and maybe even a little sports and pop culture.
If you're looking for a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, around here, it's more about those honest, heart-to-heart conversations, like the one you'd have on a front porch with good friends. Sometimes we stay on track, sometimes we take the scenic route.
And honestly, that's half the fun, isn't it? We dig into the highs, the lows, and all the in-betweens of living out your faith in real life. Along the way, we may pull up a few extra chairs and invite some friends onto the porch to share stories and ideas that just may change the way that you see things.
So whether you're chasing your purpose, building your faith, or just trying to live a little more fully, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us. This is the Pulpit and Porch. We got a seat waiting for you.
If you're listening right now and you're audio only, you're not going to notice any difference. But if you're watching us on YouTube or seeing this on a reel or a clip or whatever you call those things, flashes, shorts, or watching on Spotify video, then things are different today.
We're in a little bit different setup.
I like it so far. We're 30 seconds in, but I like it so far.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's a lot easier for you to kick me at this distance. There's no desk between us.
Yeah.
So,
but I also feel like the walls have been torn down. We've circled around 7 times. We've blown the trumpets.
Yeah. There's definitely it's more fun. I like it. I think it's just a little more casual, kind of chill. Doesn't feel like you're interviewing me every time we talk, and so
I kind of liked that.
that would be you for sure. So yeah, today should be interesting. I don't know where to go from here because, like I told you up front, like I'm not the most, like, it's not that I'm not aware. I'm not the most opinionated on these types of things, and we can talk a little bit about that. But also too, it's like normally we have this banter, and I feel like that was a really heavy intro. And I don't know, do we talk about life? Do we talk about other things, or do we just kind of go, "Hey, the world's blowing up. Let's talk about that for a minute."
Yeah, I think it's difficult because every conversation that I've had is dominated by the headlines that are taking place over the last couple of weeks, and for you, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I never talk about this.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you just have your head in the sand or you have your head in the fan, but I don't.
It's
not
that I don't talk to people. I talk. Yeah. I mean, I have as many conversations with people throughout a week.
I'm sure you have many more conversations than I have with people throughout the week.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I mean, we don't share our calendars, but I mean, I don't know. And I talk to
you want to do a Google Calendar together? You want to share that? I have about 8 of them. Color coordinated.
I'm pretty close to the same. Yeah, I have some stuff. So the main one I just use is the family calendar. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a ton of conversations. A lot of people are very interested in these types of things. I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't spend a ton of time talking through it all.
And we said it in the open. My tendency on this, I've been talking to you about this episode for a couple of weeks, wanted to do this episode for a couple of weeks, thought I had us a great guest to come on, and schedules just didn't work out. And we are at a place where we all have opinions, we all have thoughts, and we're going to try today. There are enough voices out there trying to give you their opinion and give you their take on what is happening, what it means for you and your family. We're not here to do that today because I'm not a geopolitical expert. I don't think that you're an expert in global politics. I'm not an expert.
I'm not even sure what geopolitical means. So like I'm at that point. So yeah.
And while I try to be informed, I'm definitely not an expert in global economics and all of the impacts that everything is happening on our wallet. I can see it every day in my bank account, and I can see the lines of cars at the gas stations when you find something that's under $4 a gallon. But we're not here to talk about any of those type of things. We will address some of them just from a standpoint of this is factual of what's taking place in our world and in our country right now. But more importantly, we want to talk about how do we address this from a way that we live our lives, because it's affecting people. It's affecting people financially. It's affecting people emotionally. And several of the conversations that I've had, it's affecting people spiritually. And so we want to kind of unpack that a little bit. And maybe next week or the week after, we'll get a guest in here that is a little bit more of an expert in some of these things that can, again, not tell you how you need to live your life in relation to what you need to think and believe, but how you can process some of the things that you're feeling and what you can do in your life to maybe ease some of the tension, anxiety, and stress that you could be feeling as a result of just what's taking place in the world around us.
No, absolutely. I mean, Mel and I were, we had a baseball tournament in, no, not us. We were watching Colby's team play a baseball tournament on the other side of Knoxville, heading towards Nashville this past weekend. And we were driving around in like I said, small town, like literally more goats than people. And gas was like $5.25 a gallon. And I'm going, that's just things that you kind of go, man, it's so, and I grew up in small towns. I grew up in spaces where it was blue collar and, or blue collar. I don't know what word I just tried to say, but
blue collar.
Blue
I thought
collar,
just maybe that's how you say it in Alabama.
It is, man. We just redneck it out everywhere down there. But I grew up in towns where it was, the vast majority of people weren't recording podcasts. They were up at 4 a.m. milking cows and getting ready to go, build homes or cut down trees or fix cars and those types of things. And it was just a different world.
Did you just call us sissies?
No, but I can't do any of those things that I just mentioned. And so
I tried to be a farmer.
It
didn't work so well.
You did try. I don't know if I could handle it or not. I have farmed. My granddad was a farmer, and so I've spent a ton of time with my uncles and granddad on farms and doing those types of things and stuff that I won't mention on the air. But it's really gross. But I've seen those things when every day is a grind and it's work, and then you come home. I talked to a friend just yesterday, and we're sitting around. We're just talking about life and how do you pay for this and how do you do that, and you just feel like. And he said he's like, I work a full-time job. I drive for some of these delivery type things and stuff. And he said, I drove 24 hours last week on top of and well over 50-hour job. He's got a daughter, a fiance. I mean, he's got a lot of other things in life that he's working and navigating through. And he's like, and I just sat down. I took one day off, and I just kind of went, I'm not doing enough. And I thought, at what point in time? I mean, he's talking about getting 4 hours of sleep a night. He's getting home at 1, 2 in the morning and going to bed and getting up at 6 and working a full day, and then immediately leaving that day and getting in his vehicle and driving. And I don't think this is something that we saw people doing pre-pandemic. Like, you saw people having side hustles, but side hustles have not just become a way to survive, or a way to maybe have a little extra, like, oh, I get to go to Disney because I did 7 photo shoots this year. You're charging way more for photo shoots than I do if you're going to Disney on 7 photo shoots. But like, if you, I get to go to Disney because I shot a couple of weddings, or we get to get Dollywood season passes because I mowed a couple extra yards or for my neighbors or something like that. Like, this is literal survival. I mean, it is, how do I take care of things? And so, I don't spend time. Like I said, I don't know that I spend time going, like, you've put words in here and stuff that I know if somebody would have said this, I knew what was going on. I don't know some of the details at the level you've put in the show notes for today. And so I wouldn't have had a clue what some of those words are. If somebody would have said, "What's this?" I was like, no clue. But I mean, as I'm kind of showing, I actually have a ton of conversations with people about how life is impacting them. And for me, at the end of the day, I'm just a dude that lives in a town. I wake up, I go to work, I do my things, and I come home. And I told you earlier, I'm trying to be, I said training to be, listening to John Mark Comer too much maybe, but I'm training to be a better dad, a better husband. I think I fall short. I know I fall short on those things. And so I want to love people better. And so I'm working through these things, but I'm having a ton of conversations with people. It's probably for me more on the applicable side of, because I can't fix this.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that we'll dive into today, is that we can't fix this.
And so it's not that and I'm sure we'll get into other things. It's not that I think that certain social media posts are appropriate. It's not that I don't pull up to the gas pump and go, oh wow, I filled my car up for $35 a week ago or 3 weeks ago, and now it's $70. Like, it's not that I don't understand what's there, and it's not that I don't feel it. It's more of a thing of, I'm trying to sit in the tension with people of the things I can help them with, not the things that I have no clue.
So what are the things that you're hearing from people that people are worried about right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's like a time, like, literally, like I talked with my friend, people are concerned about, how do I have enough time? I've got friends who are like in that age of they're in their late 50s, because I'm 50, and so I've got a lot of friends who are in their late 50s, early 60s, and they felt like they were creeping up on retirement, and they're going, I don't know how to retire. Now, I've said before, I don't think in America or in 2026, even on the planet Earth, that we handle retirement in a biblical way. That's a conversation for a totally different day with probably people smarter than me. But the way people retire, people are concerned. People are going, I don't have enough because the taxes on my house went up 38%. This happened, and I had money put aside to help the grandkids go to college. I had put a small thing aside, and we were throwing in a few bucks a month, and now I don't feel like that I can contribute. And and maybe it's not a grandparent's job to have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 put aside to help their grandkid go to college after they've already helped their kids go to college. But these people wanted to do those things. They're struggling through, and that maybe seems like, oh, first world problems, and maybe it is, but it's still the life they're living in. It's people who are retired, and I spend a lot of time in that space in the community I'm in and the church I get a chance to be a part of, where we have an older demographic, and they have a set amount of money. And they're not waking up going, or not that they aren't. I'm seeing them wake up and go, I wonder how much I could make a month on DoorDash.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to offset just, like a snow day, bread and milk. I mean, they're trying to offset the basics of life. People are concerned about homes for their kids. I will say that's something I think about. You and I both, our youngest, our kids are graduating in the next month and a half now. It's crazy to think about. And when I think about that, all of my kids, as well as yours, and you've got several who are in their 20s that are looking at houses and homes. And I think kids are concerned. I say kids, I think young adults are concerned. My kids, your kids, Young adults are concerned. They're trying to figure things out. I saw somebody post a house just the other day. Beautiful house. Town it's in, location it's in. I would have thought $250,000, and it was $450,000. Your wife's a realtor, and so you get those things. I guess it could spiral out to a lot of the things we're talking about, but I don't.
And I think that we're just barely scratching the surface, and not to be fear mongers and drive that, because we're actually hoping with this episode to do the opposite of that and bring some peace, some clarity into a very unclear situation right now. But the global ramifications of what's taking place right now, we're 7 days away from the end of this peacetime, this ceasefire that has not gone well, because the ceasefire hasn't played out the way that I think anybody thinks that it was. From all understanding, and I will say from all understanding because this isn't factual in any way, because I'm not an expert. Again, I'll probably say that 20 times. But it seems that the peace negotiations broke down between our vice president and Iran. We made the decision yesterday that we were going to blockade the blockade that was blockading the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. And so we decided to use our Navy to block passage and restrict passageway through this critical strait that the world's, I don't remember exactly what the number is, but 80%, something like that, of the world's oil supply comes through. And the rest of the world is angry at us for a lot. Well, most of the world is angry at us for the things that we're doing. That are they legal, and beyond legal, are they ethical? But the ramifications long term of this go far beyond what we're going to pay to fill up our car with gas, because so much more is dependent on the oil that comes out of the Middle East, of the natural resources that come out of the Middle East. And so what we're going to see, if this prolongs, if passage through the strait to bring these oil tankers through, that something like the vast majority, I'm going to try to not put numbers on things, because then we'll have listeners correct me. And that's fine. If I say something that you need to correct, please do that. We'd love to hear that. But a large portion of the world's fertilizer comes through this region. A large portion of the world's helium, the vast majority of the world's helium, comes from this region of the world, of the globe. And so what we're going to see if this prolongs is that without fertilizer, farmers can't farm, which then greatly affects food costs, which are already increasingly high. Food costs are the highest that they've been in decades. Inflation is at the highest that it's been in years and years. Gas prices are the highest that they've been in, almost 20 years now. And it's just going to continue to increase if this conflict doesn't resolve itself in a way that's beneficial, not only to the United States, not only to Iran, but to everyone, all of humanity around the globe. And so I think that the fears are valid in, how do I not only afford my life now, but how do I prepare for my life in the future, depending on what the outcome of this in the next week or so is going to be, and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, and it's a high stress situation for a lot of people, and again, that's not lost on me. And we're trying to see how do you just serve and come alongside people. And guy showed up at the church a couple Sundays ago, and just there, and he said, "Hey, I had a job, now don't." And he's homeless, woke up one day and I don't know, I have no clue. I literally had like $12 in my pocket. I never have cash. It's baseball season, so we have to pay to get into games, and they don't take debit cards in the middle of small town, rural Tennessee. So we have a few dollars cash, and that's what I had left over from the last game that we had gotten into. And so, it's like you listen to people, you try and hear their stories, you go, man, how can I help? And when we can kind of do for one what you wish you could do for everyone type mentality, and go. So no, I agree 100% that there's a lot of nerves and tension and things going with this.
Why do you think that this one feels different? that our world is always under tension. There's always global tension happening, and yet somehow this time it feels different.
Yeah, we need to flip the question asking, let me ask you. The one thing I would say to this is I was thinking about, probably in light of this episode over the last couple of days, I've just been thinking through this, and I continue to I continue to blame things that probably aren't the cause fully. But I just think 24/7 news and social media create so much like tension around things that it's really, really hard for us to think straight, because we don't know what's true, and whether it's CNN or Fox or MSNBC or CBS or whatever the news outlet is. I mean, there's one that's popping up now, News Nation or something, which I have never watched. It's like the news how it should be, and I'm going, what does that even mean anymore? and I think that's the thing is so it's just news comes so fast. You can flip it on. When I sit with people, especially of an older demographic, and we talk about fasting and we talk about resting in silence, Sabbath type things, a lot of people, when I'm talking to, I'm going to say my age and younger, for the most part, are like, oh, social media, Netflix. Not like almost 100%. It's well over 80% of people my age and older start, especially once you clips like 60 and up, I'll say, start to go, Fox News is on at my house 15 hours a day. CNN is on at my house 15 hours a day. And I can't turn it off.
Multiple TVs, I'm guessing.
I can't turn it off. I find myself hearing one story, and then the news is on in the background, and I'm on YouTube on my phone or my computer, and I'm diving deep in while I've got that with subtitles on, muted up here. I'm now stepping in and I'm doing this here. And so I just think there's so much access to information that is entirely being shared from the perspective of the person who's wanting to get the click. And so I'm not saying every news outlet is wrong. I think all of them share some level of truth, and some of them are way more accurate. Even like a news channel that I might align to more, I think is inaccurate on some things, and a news channel that I typically would not agree with probably is more accurate telling some stories. But I think because of that, we just
but
never
it's all
know.
biased. They all have an agenda.
They do. They want to be the news outlet that makes the money, that gets all the things. So yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Which of this feels most pressing to you? Maybe even most real to you? You've got financial side of things. You've got the safety side of things. You've got the uncertainty of the future, a leadership in our country. That I was watching the news this morning, and our president has the lowest approval rating of any president since LBJ. And so which of this is causing you the most tension or fear?
I mean, I don't. I've given so many of my like one-liner, like little speeches on here in almost 3 years of doing the show, and so I don't think safety is a biblical principle. I try to live that way.
Robert, the fact that we live, you are sitting right now less than 2 miles from a plant that does the uranium enrichment. You work in an area that is developing one of the highest developers of nuclear energy and uranium in our country. And the region that we live in right now, we went over and bombed Iran to stop what is taking place 10 miles from us right now. And so you have some people that would say, if that were to escalate onto U.S. soil, that these would be the places that would be targeted fairly certainly. And so there is a certain sense of, wow, what's safe for me and my family? What is that? I know one of the big things that has really hit home for me recently, and you're in the same place, is that we have boys that just turned 18. They had to register for selective service. And there are talks of, if this thing escalates, that we could see a draft for the first time since Vietnam. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. I think that we have way too many young men and women that have the strong patriotic desire to serve our country, that we're not going to get to that place. But my son asked me the other day, can you not get drafted if you're a student in college? And there's a fear. There's an anxiety around the things that you're seeing on social media and in the news headlines and all of this. And so I think that you can say that safety isn't a biblical principle, but at some point there is a point where you say we wear seatbelts because when we get into our car, because we want to do our maximum effort to ensure our safety in event of a situation.
I think what I would say to seatbelts is the vast majority of people wear them because the government tells them they have to. I mean, I grew up in a world where, and again, cars have gotten faster. Things have happened differently. I'm not acting like 1977 when I would have been 2 is the same thing as 2026. But I grew up in a world where we took the seats out of the back of the van and threw a mattress in there, so for long trips we could just lay down and sleep. Melissa will talk about grew up sitting on the 8-track cassette holder in the back seat of the car because she couldn't see out the window. I mean, and these were when we were 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, not when we were, we came home probably with our parents holding us in their arms, not in the car seat. And so, I think a lot of times things happen because we're told they have to, not because we necessarily see the value. And so for me, like I'm being 100% transparent here. It's not that I don't think about some of these things. I literally just told you I'm concerned about how my boys afford a home with things going. If they get even what is considered to be a good job, I don't know how they walk out and get, a $500,000 home that's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath kind of starter house. I don't know what that looks like, and things going forward. And so I do think about those things. And I would love to say that I don't worry because that's what Scripture says we should do. And I do think about that. And I probably worry a little more than I should. But I really, it's something, and I'm being really transparent here. I just don't. Like I've thought about this. I just don't get hung up on these. And I've really thought a ton because at the end of the day, the thing I'm trying to do, and I fail at it miserably, I've just is to be a witness, to be someone who loves people well and that points them towards Jesus. And I feel, and so I will listen to people talk about these things. But my conversations are really very rarely about the topics that are there. It's way more about the conversation that, where do we put our hope when things are scary? And so when I sit with the 60 to 80-year-old who that's all they do is watch the news all day long, and they're just going, oh, and I'm going, hey, I get it. But where do you put your hope? Like what's our trust in? So what would Scripture say? How do we navigate this? If this is the tension, and I don't think it's that we don't vote. I don't think it's that we just put our head in the sand. Like I said, I'm aware of what's going on. I just prioritize disciple making over most of this. And people can say you're a loser, and that's fine. They can put that in the show notes. It doesn't matter to me. I just can't find a better example.
And I definitely wouldn't say that you're a loser. And in fact, I think you're getting to the place that we all need to get to. But there are steps that need to happen before most people get there. And especially in your role as a pastor, most people, if they're not looking to people that they don't know, they're not looking to their leaders, their government, even leaders that would wear a suit and tie or a blouse on TV and speak with some sort of authority, giving answers, like you were saying, that those are the people that they tend to look to for leadership. If they have a question, one of the first people they come to is their pastor a lot of times. So I think being prepared to say, all right, you have these fears, you have these anxieties, rather than just saying, let's just throw the Jesus banner over it, which is where we want to get them to. But Jesus, every time that he talked with someone, literally every single time in Scripture, he met the physical need of the person before he met the spiritual need of the person. And so when people are coming with fear and anxiety and tensions and questions, we need to be prepared to say, all right, let's address this. And now let's point it back to Jesus. Just throwing a blanket, well, it's all about Jesus. So it is, but you have to meet people's felt needs.
Yeah, and I think saying this and one of the reasons, like, it's kind of why I hate I'm a pastor, because I did this, I feel like, incredibly well, not in that role. And I think sometimes people go, oh, well, you're a pastor, this is what, and it's like, man, I sat in spaces when I wasn't a pastor. I sat in spaces when I was just a dude. That hit shutters on a camera, that filmed video, that made graphics, that like helped buddies in food trucks and things like that, and just freelanced and worked and did and provided for my family. And when I sat in places that felt off, and these were the conversations, and I always go, man, tell me your story. Tell me about that. Like, how it's always a, how does that make you feel type of situation. But it's genuine. Like, there is no one. Yeah, I'm going to say no one. There are few people who want to hear someone else's story more than I do. And I will let you tell it until, like, you can start with, it was a dark night in December when I was born. And I will listen all the way up to right now. I love hearing people's stories. I give people way too much time. I give people way too much energy. Like, I will sit forever and listen to your story. I just think at the end of the day, like, yeah, Jesus met a felt need, but like, when I look at those things, it's always something of, he heard their story and he immediately moved them to the Father. And that's what I do. I mean, I hear their story, but like, he had the power
but before
to
people
fix
are
so many
open
things.
for the spiritual need, they came to Jesus because they had something that they wanted from him.
Mm-hmm.
What they left was with what they wanted, but something so much more.
Yeah.
And as a church, we're getting so far off topic here, that as a church, I think that we want to just jump to the spiritual need, and we don't care about the felt needs of people. And I don't mean the church that you're at, because we've actually seen your church do some incredible things in the lives of people that are meeting felt needs with people who don't even really go to the church, but it's being the church. But the church as a whole, we say, we want you to come to us and let us tell you what you need to do to be spiritually right in the world. And that's not the example that we see out of Jesus at all. Jesus was constantly moving to the people. He didn't expect people to come to him. He was moving to the people. And when he got there, literally, find me a place in the Gospels that he doesn't meet someone's felt need, their physical need, before he addresses the spiritual need that they have. It's every single time, because he realized that you have real, tangible problems in your life. You have real fears. You have real hurts. You have real issues in your life that you're not going to be open to the eternal unless we can take care of the temporary things right now that are a blockade for that. And I think for a lot of people, when they see that their president is posting pictures of himself as Jesus, when other people are the number of times that I've had people come to me and say, man, can you believe what just happened? And if we simply just say, yeah, I'm just going to gloss over that, then I think that we're missing an opportunity to address the concerns that they have that ultimately point them back to Jesus.
Yeah, I think those are two very different analogies in talking about that Jesus met felt needs, and Trump put a picture of himself out as Jesus. At the end of the day, it's any Bible believing Christian, and you're welcome. I'd almost give you my phone number if I didn't want the calls. Any Bible believing Christian that thinks that is okay, I would have serious questions about the Bible you're reading.
We've seen people saying that Trump has been evangelical Christians, saying that Trump is chosen and anointed by God to bring forth Armageddon by what he's did, that this is biblical, what is happening, and Trump is God's chosen vessel to bring forth Armageddon in the Middle East to get things going for the end times. And I've had people that are Christ followers say, what's the truth to this? Is this true? Are we in the last days? Are we heading for the end? And genuine concerns, genuine fears that people have.
And in that, I would say I can't answer. Is that who Trump is? I have no clue. I mean, he could be I sort of say a tool that God is using to move things towards
Or
the
just
end
a
days.
tool.
He could be a tool that God's using to move things to the end of the days. But like the end, but yes, we are moving towards the end days. The disciples thought that 2,000 years ago. We think that now, and it could be in 2,000 years they're still thinking that. We have no clue.
Yeah.
But as we move into that space and in that thought and in that thinking, like it should spur us on to doing the good thing. So the thing I would say is though, is like so again, like whether it's something that how people see Trump or how people see any president or how they want to pursue leaders in our country and things there. Or the flip side is you move back to Jesus and you said he met a need. I haven't met a lot of people that when someone's blind, they can give them sight back.
No, but you just had a conversation with a guy who said, I don't know how I can afford to feed my family.
Yeah.
I'm having that is a felt need.
Yeah.
That is a felt need.
And in that
and so
moment,
then rather than just saying, well, let's pray about it,
yeah.
it's hey, all right, let's talk through. What are some things that you can do?
And I also gave him every dollar in my wallet. And
so you met a need
met
there.
what I could as far as in that moment and what.
But isn't that what we're called to?
And so I mean and I don't, and I mean it's a tough world because there's a group of people who tell me, and I have no clue if this is true or not, that there is a I want to call it like a Big Brother house, almost like a reality show, where there's a group of people that are being transported around town that are pretending to be homeless, that are setting up on street corners and things like that are a part of a money-making scheme in our area, in our region. I have no clue if that's true. But they're like, I watch them get into a van, get driven off, and then I drive around the corner and they've been taken to the next location. And like, I mean, it's like they've become like, they're like almost stalking this thing, wanting to see what's going on. And I don't, so there is a part of me that when our lead pastor spoke at church this past weekend, and he was like, this is why I don't trust people. And like,
yeah,
like,
it's so easy to become cynical.
It is. And that's a really good, thank you for saying it that way. And I can, and that's the thing is I didn't grow up going, so I heard Andy Stanley say one time, believe the best, don't assume the worst. He said, when you're sitting at work and somebody's late to a meeting, if they're never late to meetings, just because you had a hard morning, you should not just be like, you should not just assume the worst, that this is just these people trying to burn me to the ground. Like your thought should be, oh my goodness, like I hope they're okay. Maybe I should call them and see. And so I was not raised to be a believe the best, not assume the worst person. I was kind of raised, I feel like, to be an assume the worst person. That probably says more about me than does anybody that raised me. But I am doing everything in my power to train myself and my boys to be a believe the best, not assume the worst person. And so when something pops up, I'll kind of go, hey, what could be the thing there? What could be going on? How could we meet their need? So when Paul showed up that day and he was like, I'm struggling. He'd gotten a suit. He'd shown, and it's just stuff like this, man. I could sit here and literally just in tears work through this stuff. And he had a suit that kind of didn't fit him. And I mean, my assumption is he actually was in need. I was praying, God, give me wisdom, because I'm not a person who typically is generally like, oh, here we go. Like, give me wisdom. And I just said, hey, can you hold on a minute? And I walked and I tracked down the few dollars I had, and I came back and I just said, can I pray with you? And so I gave him, and then I did this. And that's all I can do. But it's those situations and spaces. So I totally get what you're saying. And I know that I come across as really flippant with some of this, and I definitely don't mean to be, but I kind of live way differently than what sometimes it goes. But my whole goal is, like, I just don't get deep in the weeds on some of these things. And I hear people's stories, and then I meet their need in the story they're in. And so yeah. So I guess my thing is this. What, like, you're hearing a lot more. Which of these fears and things affect you the most? when you think through, and you listed 3 or 4 there earlier, there's probably 50 more that we could add to that list. Which of these kind of hits you the most, and how does it kind of sit inside of your world and life?
For me, it's definitely the future because it's uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. The financial things, I can see what's in front of me and I can do things to prepare for the now and the tomorrow. The future, I just simply don't know. We don't know. Is there going to be a peace deal reached in the next week? Is the blockade going to end? We just don't know. And so that uncertainty, I don't like things that I can't control, and I can't control the uncertainty of what's taking place because none of us know. Regardless of the expert on television or on USA Today, none of us know exactly. Our president doesn't even know. The supreme leader of Iran does not know what's going to happen in the next week. And so I think it's that uncertainty of the future that is the most difficult for me. It can mess with you a little bit, at least for me.
We've both kind of talked about how these conversations are kind of showing up and shaping our everyday life right now. But like this question that you've kind of posed here is like, have you personally felt more anxious or unsettled? Like not that like, hey, there's like, it's one thing to say, hey, I have a thought, a concern, an idea that's out there that I'm going, you're like, hey, the future. And I kind of probably look at things and go the financial side of things and just kind of how that affects the day to day is probably more of where I sit. Like, is there something that you feel a higher level of anxiety maybe in your own life? And are you seeing that more? Like, I know you said you've seen it in other people, but is it like exponentially higher, or is it just like, oh, they're normally at a 7 in anxiety and now they're at a 50 or they're at an 8?
Yeah, for me, if I'm honest, it's definitely there. There's definitely a high. It's not a panic in any way, but a more heavier weight, more awareness of what's going on. Because with the vast majority of my livelihood comes from the tourism industry, and when you're in moments of global conflict like this, when you see higher inflation, escalating gas prices, employment going down, the very first thing that people cut out of their expenses is travel and vacations. And so we're seeing that huge, and had to make some massive shifts in the way that we're operating our business to accommodate for these changes heading into the busy season, heading into summer, and saying that bookings are way off from where they've been in the past. And so having to go and make some changes because people's habits are changing, the things that they're able to do, their margins are shifting and changing drastically because of the uncertainty, and even more so because of the reality that now you're facing what you said before, what cost you $35 to fill your tank with gas is now costing you $70.
And that's literal numbers. It's almost doubled in the last month.
Yeah. And so you have to factor that in. And when you look and see how that's across the board with food costs are rising, every place you go now, you said you don't carry cash. Every place you go now, they're adding a 3.5% surcharge if you use a credit card. And so all of these little things factor in. And for me personally, every single day when I look at my occupancy reports, when I look at the empty rooms that I have in my properties and how that's affecting my bank account, which then affects the things that I can do for my family, the things that I can do for my kids. And when the cost of gas is rising for me personally, the cost of food is rising for me personally, and yet the things that allow me the resources to survive those things are also going down because everyone else is feeling this. It is a weight. It is a more noticeable weight. And so I do find myself every morning watching the news to see what developments have there been. Are peace talks developing? Are we getting to this place where we can resolve this conflict and maybe get some things back under control? And then you have reports coming out from our president flat out saying that even if peace does come, we should be prepared as an American people to see gas prices rise, oil prices rise, food prices, grocery prices rise over the course of the next several months, that it could take quite a while for that to come back down and level back out. Stock market has done pretty well over the last couple of days, but that was a big thing over the last couple of weeks, that stock market had plunged and gone down, which greatly affects me. That affects me pretty heavily. And so, yeah, again, I wouldn't say that it's a panic. I'm not going around, thinking the world is over, but there is a little bit more of a weight that I'm aware of.
So one of the things that you and I both know is that clarity reduces fear. And when in a space, you and I talk about this a lot, and you have this conversation with me. It's not monthly anymore, but it's at least every couple of months. In a space where people don't know, they will make up their own answers.
Yeah,
and so simple understanding can help everyone in the room, whether that is at work, whether that's at church, whether that's with a baseball team. Simple, small understanding of what's about to happen can give everyone the chance to just go, okay, I can breathe just a little bit. I don't even know how to ask these questions. What are the couple of issues that you want to walk through that you feel like, hey, I'm not an expert, didn't stay at Holiday Inn Express last night, but I have a little bit of knowledge around this, and I just want to talk about those for a minute, and then you take us there.
I think we've touched on
you
most
have
of
touched
them.
on a couple of it a little bit.
The one big thing I would say, because someone asked me this just yesterday, that why are we so concerned over this? Because we only get about 20% of our oil from Iran. Well, here's exactly why. China gets 90% of their oil from Iran. Look at the back of most things in your home. Mm-hmm. What does it say?
Yeah.
Made where? In China. So the global impact is going to be felt, even though maybe right here. And I think there's some real questions to be asked. If we only get 20% of our oil from Iran, then why have our prices shot up double in the last 6 weeks? I'm talked to an economist about that. I'm not an economist. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that the vast majority of the world outside of us gets their oil from that region. And so everything coming out of there is so critical. And when that pipeline is put in a chokehold, the effect is going to be felt globally. Yeah, the other thing that I would say on that is that we haven't touched on much is that there's the real potential that this escalates from. So, and I don't want to get into just causing more fear. So I think but it's important to be informed that there is the potential that this escalates from just simply an Israeli-United States-Iran conflict to a more global conflict. And you're already seeing that in that Iran is not attacking the United States, but they're attacking the other Arab nations around them that are allies of the United States, that we have partnerships, and they're threatening to cut off their supplies from critical resources and infrastructures that they need to survive. And as that happens, then these countries then say, okay, US, you're the one at the forefront of this conflict. We're the one feeling the major push here. So we need you to kind of change some of your things. We're already seeing that many countries of the United Nations are pushing back on the U.S. and saying, we don't agree with what you're doing. We're not going to support this blockade that you're doing, blockading the blockade that was already blocked, because the ramifications are global. It's not just simply impacting Israel anymore. It's not just simply about protecting the United States from Iran's nuclear capabilities and development program. The whole world is feeling this crunch. And when everyone begins to feel the pressure, when everyone begins to feel that chokehold getting tighter and tighter and tighter, things can escalate on a global scale. And to me, that's very scary. Now, I'm not sitting here speaking doom and saying that we're on the verge of World War III.
Well, I mean, this war would be on TikTok.
Well, we're already seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be very different. Whether that means it's worse or whether that means it's better, I don't know that there's any way to fully understand what that would all look like. There's definitely weapons of mass destruction that are out there that it's like everybody has those. There's just a whole lot more there. Here's my question for you: how can we seek clarity without becoming obsessed with the information?
Yeah, clarity reduces the unknown, right? And I think that's the biggest for me, what I just said. The unknown is what causes our mind to spiral. It's what fear lives in the unknown.
But we kind of become obsessed because we talk about the access of all these things. And so how do we, like, I think most people would say, how do we get somewhere between Robert, the 70-something-year-old you're talking about that's got Fox News on 15 hours a day, and I'll put me under the bus that maybe watches 5 reels a week that are 5 60-second reels from random media outlets or something that's posted from the White House or something like that I'm seeing really very minimal. I'm seeing less than 10 minutes a week, and they're seeing 15 hours a day times 7.
Yeah.
How do you get clarity without becoming obsessed or passive with the information?
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, is not put the phone down, turn the TV off, have some moments where you are not completely tied to that, because like you said, it's a constant. And when that's constantly what you're filling your mind with, then the vast majority of the things that you're seeing online are not giving facts. They're giving speculation of what could happen. And that just fuels the unknown.
No, I think that's a really good thought. So,
and when you can understand something, even just a little bit of understanding, it takes the edge off. And that's where I think that in the role that you and I both play in a lot of people's lives, when they come to us for answers, they come to us for advice, they come to us with their stresses, that just bringing a little clarity to the situation. My son saying, hey, I just had to register for selective service. They're making everyone do this because they're talking the press secretary didn't deny the fact that there could potentially be a draft. What's going to happen? You say, whoa, pump the brakes for a second. Pump the brakes. There hasn't been a draft in 50 years. More than that. There hasn't, let's look at how many people are in the United States, and let's just step back. Let's bring a little clarity to the situation. There's no reason to panic right now, because we don't even have boots on the ground. We're not even sending in ground troops. So there's no reason for you to be panicking right now. Let's just gain a little clarity. Stop listening to the talking heads on the TV screen, and let's just look at this rationally for a second. And then just a little bit of, I don't have all the answers. I can't promise him that there won't be a draft in 18 months if this thing escalates. I can't promise that, but I can bring a little clarity to the situation, and looking at history and looking at where we're at with some statistics, and say just a little bit of clarity takes the edge off.
You and I both got different ways of saying this phrase, and we both said it multiple times on the show and kind of throughout. But like, I had somebody one time look at me and say, Robert, don't borrow trouble. And we, like I said, we both have different ways of kind of approaching that and how we would come at it. But I think that's, and I'm not speaking to your situation at all. Mine's not 18 yet. I mean, I've got 2 that are, but my youngest hasn't. We're still a few months out from that, and so we haven't had to register kind of in the middle of this stressful time for that. But I kind of go, how do I personally, and that's really all I can do, is how do I personally not borrow trouble? And people tend to catch what you do, not what you say. I was reading a book recently, and the leader in that just kind of said, man, if it comes down to, as a leader at the church, and people are watching you, and you're saying, this is our vision, mission, values, this is our steps, this is our structure, and you're not fully doing that, they're going to do what you do, not what you say. And so I think that like what you said there is really great. Like how do I help kind of go, hey, let's focus on what we know, not on what could be.
Yeah.
Like let's not borrow trouble. And that's because I mean it's just a complicated space when we kind of live in the unknown and where we are there.
Focus on the known, not the unknown.
Yeah. And so what we don't know, I think that's kind of hard. And so why is it hard to admit that we don't know something? And look, I'm you and I both have friends. Robert was actually on the show. I've got a friend in another state that's running for Senate that I would consider to be a lot like Robert Jones, someone who's just a guy. He has a job that he loves his family. He loves his country, feels like his country's provided him a lot of great opportunities. And they're both just getting up. And I shared with you, and you actually knew my friend as well. And we both shared, and I shared a couple of things. And our mutual friend that, you know, and Robert thankfully now is a mutual friend as well. But when Thomas was sharing, he'll just go on and he'll be like, hey, like Senator so-and-so, because it's a different state. I don't know who a senator is, but he's like, Senator so-and-so, I got this in the mail from you today. And it says this, this, and this, but let's look at your track record. Help me understand. I feel like the citizens of our state deserve better. And here's where I believe I can make a difference. And it's just like why is it so hard for the leaders in space? And Robert said this before you jump in, like you and Robert had this conversation kind of deep, like, I actually don't know that we could handle the truth. I mean,
yeah,
to go back to Truth or Trash and to Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. I just watched The Masters, so Nicholas is still on my brain.
I still get it wrong half the time.
I do too. I said it wrong watching The Masters the other day. I said it wrong to my boys. And so we probably couldn't handle the truth. But why is it so hard to admit sometimes that we don't know something?
Well, I don't know feels weak. A lot of times we'd rather feel certain, even if we're wrong, right? Than sit in the uncertainty, because uncertainty, as we just talked about, uncertainty is scary. Uncertainty, well, it's uncertain.
Yeah.
And so I'd rather feel like I know exactly what's going to happen, even if I'm wrong, than have that feeling of uncertainty. Because to say, I don't know something, that feels weak. When in reality, that might be the best thing that we can say. Simply, I don't know.
I've said this before. You and like you tell great stories also, but like you are a storyteller and I tell stories. And I think those are very, very different things. And I mean, you're such a great storyteller. And because of that, we come at things really differently. Like if I was going to tell the story of, George Washington and the cherry tree, I would look and I would go through, I would find some old encyclopedias. I would go to the library. I would jump on Wikipedia. I would use Google. I would buy a couple of books. I would jump into AI and look at ChatGPT or Claude or something and let Gemini tell me a couple things about the story. And then I would just piece together the facts. And I would say, let me tell you, you would come out and say, when I was a young man, and you would start to tell a story. And I think that in the space, it gets so crazy how we kind of come at information and what we know and how we go about things. And when I'm on stage, I'm like, so you actually, I say that to say, you actually like learn how to say words. And so when we're teaching through the Bible or we're talking through scripture, you'll be like, oh, this is, Nevada type stuff, tomato type things, which nobody says tomato. So that's just wrong. But when you get into those things, you actually will learn how to say that one random mountain in the book of Genesis, and you'll say that Hebrew or Greek word correctly. And I'll get up there and go, y'all, this is about the best you're going to get from this Alabama redneck. And I will work through it. And people laugh because they're going, I don't understand that. And I'm going, I'm just being honest. And you're not lying because you did learn how to say it. But I'm just going, like, I just don't know what to do here. And I think it earns trust sometimes. People going, oh, and I'm more than happy. Somebody be like, hey, can I ask you a question? Yeah. And like, what does the Bible mean in this? And I'm going, can I get back to you on that? I don't have a great answer for that. And I would love to kind of, and I think people go, oh, and then when you text them a week later and you go, hey, I didn't forget about you. I've spent some time on this. Can we grab coffee in the next couple of weeks? They go, yeah. And I have so many times people go, I never expected to hear from you again. And I'm like, well, one, I'm sorry that maybe I've set that example for you that I'm not going to show up. But two, I'm sorry that somebody did that to you, that left you in that space. I don't know that I have a perfect answer, but I've got some thoughts. And let's just let the Holy Spirit work and let's work through this thing. And I don't know how you do that in politics, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know how you have that conversation. I don't know how you go through those things, but it's something that I respect about you inside of the moments that I've sat with you when we've discussed things about life or faith and this journey. It's something I respect about you when you sit on a stool, which you and I both are kind of sitter stander people. We sit probably more than we stand a lot of times when we're teaching the Bible. But like, I think it's in those spaces that we earn that trust, that people kind of go, hey, I don't know everything. And I'm going to let you see behind the curtain just a little bit, to where you kind of go, oh, yeah, he's struggling through some of this like me. Now, I don't know that I want and maybe this is bad on my part, I don't know that I want the leader of my country going, hey, we're in a hard spot right here. We're not sure what we're going to do. But maybe a little more humility inside of the approach would help me be able to do what you just did and take a deep breath of going, okay, I can handle where we're at today, even if I don't love it, or maybe I do love it. I can handle where we're at today because I'm seeing a little bit of humility inside of where we are.
We do tend to associate confidence with leadership, though.
Yeah.
And so what you just said, if Hedgespeth got up and said, yeah, not really sure what we're doing.
Yeah.
None of us would feel good about that. Mm-hmm. And so for anyone in that position to exude confidence, even if we don't agree with it, feels like leadership. And even if it's misplaced confidence, okay, which I think a lot of times it's misplaced confidence, but it gives people something to grab a hold of. Mm-hmm. It gives them something to say, okay, maybe I don't agree with you, but I can grab a hold of this as there's at least a plan, even if I don't like the plan. And I think a lot of times that feels better than uncertainty in those moments.
Okay, so uncertainty affects people in one way that we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. But like, bad news seems to affect people in a totally different way. Like, sometimes you get bad news, like uncertainty can almost make you angry. Bad news can create anxiety, fear, like tears. I mean, like, you can get really upset. Uncertainty, like tends, I don't know. You may feel differently about that.
At least with bad news, you know what you're facing, and so you can have a game plan for how I'm going to come out of it.
Clarity that you're getting.
Yeah, you still have clarity. It's bad news. You don't like it. It doesn't feel good, but at least there's certainty there. That okay, now I know what we're dealing with, and I can take steps to move forward, to change the situation, or to come out of the situation in a way that's going to propel me towards a different path. With uncertainty, I don't know where the path is going. I don't know what's happening. So there's nothing that I can do. With bad news, at least there's something tangible that I can do. I can process the facts that I know because there are facts there, and then I can develop a plan to move forward. With uncertainty, you've got none of that.
Where can speculation, how do you see speculation really creating almost more fear, worry, anxiety, like just deep in the muck and the junk and the hurt and the pain than clarity does?
I would say social media. You touched on this a little bit earlier. What happens is that when we don't have answers, we fill it with speculation. We fill it with opinions. We fill it with assumptions. We fill it with misinformation. Man, there's so much misinformation, and that stuff spreads fast. And so when we have all of this misinformation out there that we're doom scrolling through and getting all of these opinions that other people have that are less experts in this situation than you are, they're making assumptions on how things are going to happen, then it just fuels that anxiety and that lack of clarity. And so I would say social media, at least with news outlets, reputable news outlets, you're getting people that have been vetted in some way by someone, right?
Yeah.
Social media, and you would there will be shorts, reels, whatever of this episode that come out that we have no clue what we're talking about with this stuff. Hopefully we've made that abundantly clear, but something that we've said, we can pull a clip out and put it out there that makes it seem like we know what we're talking about. And someone can grab that and run with it and say, these guys are on the internet, so they must know what they're talking about. And because I don't know, I'm desperate for someone to give me answers to the things that I don't know. So I'm going to grab a hold of that, even though it can be completely wrong and just someone's opinion or assumption.
Yeah, I'm dreading opening up my social media over the next couple of days after this conversation because we've talked about before, your social media is no longer algorithm based, it's interest based.
Yeah.
And so our interests drive what's on our reels. And so when you talk about things and the phones are listening, they like my reels and my stories and things are going to be full of all of this for the next few days. And it'll take me a while to get it back to Masters golf stories and and random things about cameras. So you said this a minute ago. And I want to say this right before we take a break. I want to say this. I want to ask you a question out of it. You said that you were talking that people gravitate towards confident voices even if they're wrong. Like, it's bonkers. And I say this all the time, and I've said it on here. I say it at church. And I think as you and I have watched, we both agree with this. I am watching 30-second TikTok videos tear down 30 years of sound biblical teaching because you can say a lot in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it makes sense inside of a short clip to say something. You're going, well, I think people should be treated more fairly in this way, or I think faith should be more inclusive in this way. And it doesn't include all of the finer points of what scripture is actually saying. It takes just a little nugget and then leaves out the actual theology around that nugget. And I watch it confuse and tear down people all the time. And so someone who does something that's with a really confident voice, even if they're wrong, are going to attract people to them. What does it look like to live wisely when you don't have all the answers, and to maybe also not just get sucked into that one voice that is just so loud and so prominent in that space that you're sitting in?
We started off with this, and you actually said it. So you answered your own question probably about an hour ago.
That's what I do in life. I just don't I like to kind of let other people then say my answers to where it feels like that they've got some input as well.
What does it look like? It looks like focusing on the things that you can control. What are the things that you can control? Stay grounded in those things. Stop pretending that you have answers that you don't have, and just focus on the things that you have control over.
Yeah. No, I struggle. Like, I don't mind being confident. I don't mind saying hard things. And I think sometimes, and I mean, everyone who leads finds a place in a moment where they step into a situation and they just go, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be confident here, even though I'm not sure how all this plays out. And nobody, I think, loves overall kind of how that really affects everything. But we have all done this, but I'm really trying to figure out, man, how do you kind of become this person that that understands that you just don't have to have all the answers, and that it's okay one, as a leader or as someone with information, to not have all the answers, but it is also okay in our shoes, but because this is what I do with scripture every day. Like, I open it up and I go, I don't have all the answers. And at the end of reading today, and we read like 5 Psalms today in just the Through the Bible app that we're all doing as a church. And so I'm working through those Psalms and I'm looking at these things, and I don't have an answer to all 5 of those Psalms.
Yeah, so many times when I'm studying scripture, I have more questions when I'm done than I did before I went in.
And it's faith and trust in the things that I do understand, that I go, I don't have to understand all of this today, because he's going to grow and develop something.
Yeah, and here's what I want to say to what you said. Not knowing is uncomfortable, but it's honest.
Yeah.
It's not pretentious.
And again, I don't know how you do that as a mayor, a senator, a House representative, a governor, the president of the United States, and literally thousands of other political elected positions. Not a lot of us want the chief of police standing outside of a hostage situation at school going, well, we went to a seminar 3 years ago. I'm not really sure. Can somebody go find that notebook back in my office? We want people that are confident in hard situations. But I also think there's a difference in a situation like what I just mentioned, when you're in a standoff outside of a school, and when you're looking at future things or how that's going to come out down the road. I think those are very, very, very different things. You should be prepared kind of in a moment to deal with the situation that pops up. When you're making decisions that affect the future, like that are long-term, more thought out kind of decisions, I think it's okay to take some time and to go, we're processing this. We're wanting to make the best decision because we understand the ramifications this could have. And I don't know.
Well, and we're getting into a completely different topic that maybe we should do a whole episode on at some point. But there are ways to be confident in the things that you do know while not lying about the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you're a politician, if you're a business leader, if you're a pastor who's standing up and your people have these questions that you simply don't know the answers to, what I am confident in is that we are a strong nation. What I am confident in is that we have great minds that are working on this every single day. What I am confident in, what I can promise you, is that we are going to do everything that we can for the best of the people of this church, for this organization, for this company, for this country, that we are going to put every bit of effort and energy that we have into resolving this in a way that is going to be most beneficial, not only for our people, but for the humanity as a whole. You haven't answered any question, but you've just exuded confidence in something that has maybe comforted. Okay. You don't know how, the specifics of how we're getting there, but you know that we're going to get there because you have all the faith and confidence in the people around you and in the team that you have. And so I think there are ways that you can, as a leader, exude that confidence that people are desperate to gravitate towards and grab a hold of.
No, that's really, really good. We have been talking for a little bit now, and we've done nothing but create problems for people.
We've created a lot of problems, yeah.
And I think some of that, there might be people listening and literally going, I didn't know most of this was even going on. Or I didn't know some of this at least was going on. I didn't understand like one thing, and it would all be you that said this because I didn't add any value to any of those things. But you might have said something about things that are dealing with oil or like kids signing up for service that there could potentially, you don't think there will be. And you said that. I mean, there could be a draft and worries and concerns and fears that people you're sitting with are having and they're talking about. And so in that, we've created some tension and you tell stories and we both teach the Bible and we work through these things. And sometimes that's our job. We create a tension in people. You find we kind of focus on the tension that is in people's lives for the first third of a sermon and the first half of a teaching. And then the last half, we unpack how we can kind of work through that tension and lean into for me and you and the people we lead and teach to. That's Jesus and how he impacts and affects our faith and our life and what we do every day in loving him, loving the Father.
Without tension, there can't be resolution. Without tension, there can't be redemption.
So that is such a beautiful way to say this. I think that what we want to do is we want to give you a week to sit in the tension. We want to give you a week to kind of pray through, God, what does it look like for me to navigate this, not just in my own life, but in this world? I was listening this morning, Tony, to somebody talking, and they said we had moved from this podcast, and they said we'd moved from one town to another, and everybody had said, good luck, because that town is terrible. And they said, all we did is we just felt like God was calling us to go there. And so we moved, and we wanted to be the best neighbors in our neighborhood that we can be. And so we were just doing that. And we just saw throughout time, and it was hard. And they said it was not easy. But throughout time, God just started to open doors, and people would be like, hey, would you want to come in and have a glass of tea? Would you want to come sit on the front porch and just talk? And they saw something different. And so what would it look like this week for maybe you and me to be just a voice of hope inside of our community? What would it look like for us to wrestle through some of the things that we've talked about? I've got to evaluate some things. How do I engage these topics a little better? And next week, we'll step in and we'll go kind of, okay, what can we actually do? What's some things that we can actually do? Because you said this and I said this. We're not going to, us as individuals, there might be somebody listening that can. And if you can, call us. We'll put you on the show. We can't affect the president today. Like neither one of us have him in our phone. He's not listening to what we say, but we can pray for him. We can encourage our neighbors. And I think next week we've got some really good thoughts of how to finish that up.
Yep. Hey, do us a quick favor. If you're listening to the show right now, watching the show, we believe that the conversations that we're having are important. We believe that they're of value, and we would love to get that message out to as many people as we can. So if you are watching this, please take a minute wherever you're at and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and why not repost or share some of the things that you're seeing right now with someone else that you know. You can find our show wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can watch our show on YouTube. Just look for The Pulpit and Porch. Have a great rest of your week. We'll bring some resolution and some redemption to a very difficult topic next week. And maybe by the time we sit down again, we'll have a little bit more answers and a little bit more clarity on where this whole thing is going. Have a great week.